but it almost feels like this kind of intellectually and emotionally lazy, and I'm sure it's going to piss a lot of people off, but
On the part of the trainer, you mean?
Yeah, on the part of the trainer, as far as digging as deep as they possibly can to really deconstruct, dissect what it is that they do besides the superficial obvious that they can then pass along to their owners, so their owners have the best chance of success. And if the trainer is able to create that kind of success, then we know the dog's capable. Then it's like, okay, so what's missing? If I can do it, then it's possible. Now,
welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the I Didn't Read Your Book podcast. I am your host, Lutch, and today I've got a very special episode for you. Today we are going to be talking with Sean O'Shea about his book, Love Them by Leading Them. And what's special about this is the fact that I am somewhat aware of Sean. I haven't read the book, but he is very prolific on social media and is always, tweeting great things and posting great things. And I really just wanted to talk to him about his work. Being a dog trainer myself, obviously, this is something that is of personal interest. Do you want to say, of course, this has nothing to do with anything that I do for work. This is a personal endeavor. So any views expressed are my own, all that good stuff. But yeah, I wanted to, be able to talk with another trainer and someone who is, again, prolific in this field and not just training dogs, but talking about it and, bringing up the issues with the dog training industry and, all of this stuff that we're going to get into. It's a little bit different in the sense that I kind of know what we're getting into more than usual. But we are very much here to learn about Sean and Sean's work, not only the book, but, his work in general. And I'm just really excited to do this one with you guys. So, obviously by the cover here, we can tell it is a dog training book. And so without further ado, let's dive right in and read the back of the book. Something's going on. In a world filled with dog lovers, how is it that so many find themselves still struggling? Why do we see more behavior issues and problem dogs than ever before? How is it that we still don't get each other? The simple answer is information. We've been misled. We've been taught that leading and guiding our dogs is something harmful, damaging, oppressive, something that takes from our dogs. The truth is exactly the opposite. Leading, guiding, setting rules, creating expectations, and consequences don't take from our dogs, they give to our dogs. They give comfort, clarity, simplicity, joy, stability, and freedom. They bring out the very best. The formula is actually a simple one. In fact, it's probably stuff you already know. These principles are universal, irrefutable, but these principles are universal and irrefutable, but somewhere along the line, we lost our way. We became disconnected from the simplicity, truth, and universal laws. I believe that this book can help you reconnect, not just to your dog, but to yourself. I believe that the information and stories from actual owners can help you solve long-standing issues, sort out relationship problems, and help give you clarity on what's been going wrong and how to get it right. I believe this book can help you find that something. We've got a little about the author. Sean O'Shea is a world-renowned dog trainer, most known for his rehab work with extremely challenging dogs. He runs 2 successful training locations, one in Los Angeles and the other in New Orleans. He's released 2 highly acclaimed training DVDs, writes the popular The Good Dog Life blog, and co-teaches the internationally lauded Train the Trainer seminar. Ooh, interesting. Sean splits his time between Los Angeles and New Orleans. So, a very dense synopsis for any book, really. We were given a lot of information there. Obviously, with this type of book, it's not really, it's a nonfiction book. It's about dog training, so there's not a lot of guesswork. But it might seem, especially if you don't have a dog, or if you're not privy to what dog training is like, you might feel like this conversation is going to be kind of flat, because we're both dog trainers. We both are going to agree about things and what is there to say. But I am very excited to see where that doesn't hold true. I think there's going to be a lot of things that we see differently. And I'm very excited to see how he, contends with my idea of what I think, dog training should be, and all that stuff. So yes, I am very excited for this one. I've been trying to get this guy on for a long time. He is not easy to get a hold of, but we've got him. So without further ado, let's bring in Sean O'Shea. And there he is. Sean, welcome, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Very good, very good. Was very excited to talk to you because of how much I think we have in common, and as well as how much we might not have in common. As a dog trainer myself, we occupy some of the same spaces, but I think I'm very interested to see what we have that overlaps and what doesn't overlap. So without getting ahead of ourselves, what is why write a dog training book to begin with?
Well, basically, I've been writing on social media since whenever Facebook came out. So what's that, 10 years and change, something like that. And so I've been doing posts. And then I thought, well, what if I took all those posts, the best of the best, and put them together? Because the posts seem to be resonating with a lot of folks that were, how would I put it without sounding arrogant or self-serving? The posts seem to be resonating with people in a fashion that kind of your standard dog training posts weren't connecting, because I was basically tackling more universal concepts, concepts that could be applied to child rearing, relationships in general, and more relationship dynamics, social dynamics, things like that, rather than here's the best recall technique in town.
Right.
Things like that. And of course I had plenty of how-tos, videos and stuff like that were very information and kind of step-by-step, oriented. But for the most part, my focus was really on what I thought wasn't getting talked about enough. What I saw over and over again were that no matter what kind of tools, techniques, approaches people were using, if the relationship wasn't in the right space, then typically all of that was for naught, and a lot of things would just go south, no matter what kind of great stuff was in place from the dog trainer. So no matter what kind of magic the dog trainer could whip up, if the owner wasn't able to occupy a space that was going to create a healthy, positive space that's similar to that, then failure was oftentimes stuff that I saw in, not just in my world, but in other dog training worlds, other dog trainers. And, people would talk to me and explain, or I would get comments and people would say, I've been, working on this or this or this, and I'm not seeing any results, or things are moving backwards, or my dog is doing this, and, but it doesn't do it with my trainer. And it's like, trying to dissect what the hell's going on here? Why are people struggling? And what are dog trainers missing? And so, not that I had all the answers by any stretch, but just my own kind of my own angle on what I thought might be missing and what I could contribute to that.
And I can definitely attest to, just the tweets and your Instagram posts that I see. You have a very good way of articulating points that seem like they don't need to be said, but you read them and then it's like, oh yeah, that is a thing that I should know, but I don't know if I knew that I know that. And I find myself often, just being like, yeah, yep, yeah. And I think, what do you think it is about, the average trainer? What is it that's missing that you put into your work that other people just seem to not have it connect?
I think trainers tend to focus too much on technique and concepts and ideas along just dog training mechanics instead of deconstructing what is it that makes everything work for me as a dog trainer with a dog, and then passing it along to clients. And we get kind of superficial stuff, we'll get a lot of, well, you've got to, you've got to be a leader, and which is ironic because it's, love them by leading them, right? But you got to be a leader. A lot of kind of simplistic platitudes, a lot of things that sound great and are easy to pass along to an owner, but honestly don't really embody the full spectrum nuance, not to sound too fancy, but if you were working with a dog, I'm sure there would be a multitude of things that you would be sharing with the dog besides just the mechanics of the training. And some of that would be conscious, some of it would be unconscious from experience. And then when you go to work with a client, the hopes would be that you'd be able to not only show the mechanics, the tools, training methodology, but also what are you doing and how are you living with that dog? And what are all the tiny little conversations you're having constantly with the dog that would enable you to have different results than a client would? And so that's the thing that I see over and over and over again missing. And then you see or hear the kind of client blaming, shaming kind of concept, clients suck, clients don't do the work, clients, like fill in the blank. And yeah, we've got, like any other field, I'm sure if you were a personal trainer, training folks fitness wise, you'd have plenty to gripe about with folks that, don't do the work, or, haven't done their exercises for the week, or snuck in those Twinkies they shouldn't have snuck in, so I think that stuff happens all over, but it almost feels like this kind of lazy, intellectually and emotionally lazy, and I'm sure it's going to piss a lot of people off, but
on the part of the trainer, you mean?
Yeah, on the part of the trainer, as far as digging as deep as they possibly can to really deconstruct, dissect what it is that they do besides the superficial obvious that they can then pass along to their owners, so their owners have the best chance of success. And if the trainer is able to create that kind of success, then we know the dog's capable, then it's like, okay, so what's missing? If I can do it, then it's possible. Now, of course, there's a million variables in there, right? Is the owner doing all the work? Is the owner da 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 da? But most importantly, does the owner understand clearly all of the different little pieces, all the different conversations, all the nuance that you would be doing, and at least to give them a fighting chance? So if they do know all that, then it comes down to, do they do the work, or is it too much work, or are they lazy? And there's that stuff, and it goes on. But I find there's a lot of owners that are desperate for more transparency, more honesty, but also more sophistication in the deconstruction of what dog trainers are doing. And it sounds like I'm just slamming trainers, which I train a lot of trainers, so that's not where I'm going. What I'm trying to do is just kind of put forward a conversation that's I think hopefully a bit more nuanced, sophisticated, thought-provoking. And that's why, what you said at the beginning, I think is cool, because things that you thought, oh, maybe like this isn't even really germane or important, necessary to what we're doing, and then it maybe provokes a thought or an idea, and you're like, maybe that could be something that's valuable. So that's really the goal with this, is to try and just introduce some conversations and some different thought processes about dog training, rather than just the simple, straightforward, heard a million times, and oftentimes just causing owners not to be able to replicate what trainers can do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, beautifully put. I think that, a lot of, I'll tell my clients that a lot of times what trainers will miss is the difference between a dog who can do tricks and an obedient dog. That's not the same thing. And oftentimes it comes down to what I refer to as the dog's respect of your authority. And, the idea of, can you do this? And I'm resonating very much with what you're saying. The fact that people are looking for things to be broken down and looking to dissect exactly what's going on here. And, there's definitely people who just want, like, you fix it. They have that kind of
Yeah,
attitude.
sure,
But
sure.
more and more and more, I am seeing, exactly what you said, the people who want to understand the ins and outs of what's going on. And I think that goes, back to exactly what I was saying about what you'll tweet or post is, especially as a trainer, it'll be something again that I definitely already knew, but maybe was shelved somewhere that I didn't connect with a dog that I'm currently working with, and in a different context or whatever it is. And so it's really cool to have to have all that information and to be able to put it in the proper context, so that when I'm with a client and they are it can be, I'm sure all too well, better than I could, that sometimes the clients are at their wits' end. They're in desperate situations, and
Mm.
they're looking to you, as a last resort sometimes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And to kind of add on to that, for one, if you can do something, even if the owner is not capable of replicating it at that point, if you can do something that can show them that their dog is capable, you can create, or you can open the door to possibility, to hope, to even more effort. Oh, shit. Oh, can I curse on this, by the way?
Please.
Um, shit, this is actually possible. Okay, now I can be more motivated because I've lived for 3 years with this dog and I didn't think anything positive was possible with the dog. And so you've shown me, just in a few sessions or whatever it is, you've shown me, wow, there's a completely different world out there. Cool. Now I'm motivated. Now I'm excited. Now I'm feeling optimistic. And so that's one of the cool aspects of just like being a good dog trainer and being able to actually show somebody, look what's possible. Then you have to move from look what's possible and like, here's the magic and wave the magic wand and aren't I a cool badass, to now let me show you how to replicate what I did, which is really having to get into the weeds. And I guess this goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that I'm concerned that there's not enough emphasis put on that part of it, as far as what exactly, breaking down what exactly we're doing. And because so much of it is unconscious, once you become so good at a skill set, like if you were riding motocross or racing cars, there's so many things that you're going to be doing unconsciously, that if you were training me how to do it, you would have to be a really, really great teacher to pull all the nuances, because there's going to be so many unconscious ones that you're going to be like,
Right.
well, of course you're going to do that. Like, not even thinking about it. You're going to be, of course you're going to like rev match and you're going to whatever it might be. I think that in dog training, I've definitely seen some great teachers who understand this and are able to convey this. And then I've seen a lot of folks that get caught so much in the just the mechanics and the tools and the methodology, that they forget about, like you said, for one, relationship dynamics, social dynamics. What does the dog feel about you? Dog trainers oftentimes understand how a multitude of small conversations can create that respectful dynamic and have a dog completely react completely differently with you, because of some small little moments that an owner wouldn't even realize were valuable enough to even address. Or if they did see, well, that doesn't seem like a healthy thing, they wouldn't know what to do with it. So just basically, like I just think we have to get better as teachers, and that involves a shit ton of work of really deconstructing what the hell you do. If you're good at what you do, whether it's dog training or anything else, and you want to teach, you better get really, really good at deconstructing, why am I good at what I do? And then be able to regurgitate that, hopefully in a in a way that is not overwhelming and not over people's heads, and simple enough that folks that are laymen can get it and run with it.
Yeah, I think that's been one of my earlier challenges, was not so much knowing what to do in a certain situation, but how to relay that information. Over the years, trying to break things down and use like analogies
Yeah.
and just find a way to transfer the perspective that I have to the owner, so that they can see it the way that I see it, nuances and all.
Yeah.
Um, So how long have you been a trainer?
Well, it depends what you want to call a trainer. So I got my guys in 2000. And so I started working with them in about 2002, 2003, because they were a disaster. And so that's when I started searching out information. Unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot available besides, public library stuff online. They're like in 2000, 2002, 2003. It's like, good luck with a bunch of do-it-yourself YouTube videos or anything like that. So I had to try and find my way. And I just started searching for answers everywhere I could. I started with all positive reinforcement stuff, had every book, every DVD, and went through all of that. And the only person I actually ever had as a, if you would call it a mentor, it was just for a short amount of time, but we were friends for a long time, was a positive only trainer in Los Angeles who had graduated from Eden, which is exotic animal training and management. So it's a pretty prestigious school where they deal with lions and all sorts of big stuff. And so that was my first experience getting into training early on. But I was already seeing limitations because I was going all in on positive reinforcement stuff with my super reactive, dog aggressive, maniacal dogs. And then I was seeing limitations when I would start to enlarge the environment and add much higher level distractions or triggers to the situation. And then that mentor that I was apprenticing under started sending me all of her dogs that were biting and being aggressive and problematic. And she had no ego in it, which I have to give her mad props for. But even with far less experience, she was sending those dogs to me and good things were happening. And so word started spreading. And so I started kind of doing that. And then I got into dog walking. And I would say that was probably 2005, 2006. Something like that. It would be my best guess. I'm terrible with time, but and then launched officially 2007, 2008 would probably be when I launched the actual, like, I'm going to go to your house and, train your dogs and do all that kind of stuff. And then started messing around with board and trains and things like that. So however many years that is.
A nice long chunk of time.
Yeah,
so
it's been a bit.
So this is something I've been very excited to talk to you about. So
yeah.
The company that I work for is a positive reinforcement only company.
Okay.
And I see the value in the way that is marketed, and I see the value in taking a more positive route to something that can be solved with positivity. But there's such a, I mean, you would know better than I guess a stigma against what I guess we would call balance training, where you're not just using positive only.
Sure.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
As far as the stigma, or what exactly would you like me to speak to? I'm happy to. I just want to make
yeah,
sure.
why do you think it's so common for people to have the ideas of balance training and the say I'm only doing positive only training, and where do you think that comes from, and how do you think that affects people's experiences either having a dog or trying to train a dog?
Well, I think positive reinforcement stuff is hugely appetizing. I mean, how can it not be? I mean, the story that goes along with that is one that every dog owner that wants a trained dog or has problems with their dog would love to completely have be I'm going to just be straight, but be real as what it's purported to be and deliver the results that it's purported to deliver. And so if you could turn around truly serious issues or train more challenging dogs with positive only work and have that deliver consistent results within a reasonable amount of time, and I don't mean like 3 weeks, I mean like under 6 months, something like that, I think you would have most people very, very excited about that. I think the problem comes from the fact that people typically, what I get is people on their third, fourth trainer, something like that. And so most of them, psychologically, it makes perfect sense. They go to the positive only route. Why? Because they love their dogs. It makes sense. Like, man, if I'm raising my kids and I don't know any better and I haven't done any more research, and you tell me that there's a way to get my kid who's doing drugs and stealing the car in the middle of the night and threatening mom and dad, and I guess I'd be dad, threatening, and there's a way to counter that and put them on the right track without having us change our lifestyle, right any or correct any problems within our own presentation as far as authority figures or anything like that, the social dynamics in the house. If I didn't know any better, I would be, of course, like, well, where do I sign up? Like, that sounds great. My kid's a mess. And if I can make them not a mess through the most comfortable fashion for me emotionally, but also for them because I love them, then that's what I'm going to go for. And I think the same thing happens with dog owners. So they automatically, or that's a bit cheap, they tend to a large degree, move in that direction first. I'm trying to be careful. Move in that direction first, and it makes perfect sense when people contact us after they've spent a year or two doing positive only training. There's no, from our side of it, there's no shame in well, what were you doing? And wow, you spent a lot of money. What a waste or anything. It's like, no, like you had to go learn what worked and what didn't. And maybe you got some really good stuff out of that, but maybe you hit a wall and found some limitations that you couldn't get through. So, I mean, the positive reinforcement stuff as the only thing that you can use, I've got major problems with. The positive reinforcement as a branch on a tree for helping owners and dogs, I think is fantastic. Obviously, I mean, I think you kind of have to be moronic to think that that's not playing a huge part in training dogs what you want. I mean, when I was competing in flyball with my dog, Belle, like that was what it was. She wasn't out there with an e-collar and I'm like correcting her for not going over a jump in flyball and like, you naughty dog. It's like,
Right.
it was all positive reinforcement stuff, but she didn't have any behavior issues. She wasn't attacking any other dogs. I've had gazillion, okay, that's an exaggeration. I've had a lot of folks from the agility world and from the flyball world, but really heavily from the agility world, come to me for e-collar training undercover because they're not allowed to use e-collars in agility or anything else. I'm sorry, anything else, meaning prong collars, if they're having problems with walks and things like that. But their dogs are attacking other dogs when they're on the agility field or breaking. So they're doing the course, and then they'll break and they'll actually go after another dog and just break away from the actual routine they're doing. And so by doing e-collar work, I've had so many owners that compete in agility get over that hump, and they don't use the e-collar when they're actually doing the work because they're not allowed to, or competing, I should say, because they're not allowed to. But that work has allowed them to continue to compete in a field where if they knew that you were doing that, they'd probably toss you out. So when I mean, that would be my best guess, or they would, if not, you would definitely be looked down upon, right? Mm-hmm. If you're having to use e-collars, the whole stigma is that, you know, this stuff, the stigma is that if you have to use these tools, it's because you haven't taken enough time, you're not patient enough, you're looking for shortcuts, and
that you don't care about hurting the dog too. I think that's a big thing. And so, to someone who's, maybe looking at getting a new puppy, and they just, they don't plan on doing anything competitive. They just want to have a nice, obedient dog, 20-pound dog that's not going to be to hang around the house. And so they're thinking, why do I need to be using an e-collar, a shock collar, a prong collar? Why do I need to use that stuff if they don't have any behavioral issues like that?
And if they don't, I mean, it really depends on your needs and your goals. So if you've got a dog and your standards for behavior are met with how your dog behaves in the house and on the walk, then great, knock yourself out. If you've got a dog on a harness and your dog pulls and zigzags around and does its thing, but it's not dragging your arm out of the socket, or it just doesn't bother you, even if it is like dragging you around pretty firmly, that's your choice. Like, knock yourself out. If your dog barks and goes bananas, I've got family and friends who've got dogs that are super ill-behaved, acting bananas all over the place. They don't care. Like, so I don't preach to them like, well, you should do it this way and da da da. It's like, if that's your standard, and I don't mean that judgmentally, if that's your standard for what's okay for you, knock yourself out. But if you want a nicer walk.
So sorry to interrupt your podcast experience. I just want to remind you, if you're enjoying what you're watching, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And if you really love it, there's some support links in the description. I would love if you could help out the channel. And back to the show.
And if you want 100% reliability on a recall with a dog that's got prey drive or easily distracted, then I want to be able to offer people a higher standard, once again, not judgmentally, a higher standard if that's what they're looking for. And so that's what I would say to folks. Like, I'm not trying to proselytize and get anybody to use these tools or that this approach is best universally. What I'm dealing with, and if people know the stuff that I typically work with, or the kinds of dogs I typically work with, they're typically more problematic dogs, more serious behavior issues, things like that. That said, we do get puppies and we do get happy-go-lucky dogs. And so puppies come in, and the first course of our puppy program is all positive reinforcement. It's all food luring. It's all standard fare like that. And then we move them to leash and prong. Then we move them to e-collar, because these owners want to be able to have their dog off leash and want to be able to make sure they get their dog back no matter what. Like, for one, so here in Los Angeles, it was more about the risk of, I mean, it's a risk anywhere, but there's a lot of parks where there's cars nearby, and so super easy for a dog to get hit. Out here, it's like, it's very easy for your dog to like jump in a swamp and get eaten by a gator. So there's real stuff with that, or just running away. I mean, like, I'm giving some kind of like a little bit more of a humorous example, but a lot of folks, especially like here in Louisiana, they really want, and we get people that come from all over, from Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, Texas, all over the place. And they're just looking for the confidence to have their dog, for whatever reason, not for whatever reason that they want it, but for whatever reason their dog is struggling with, reliably off leash. And anybody who's being honest about dogs and has worked with enough dogs knows that there's plenty of dogs out there who have massive prey drive, and all the food in the world and all the reps in the world and all the proper protocols in the world aren't going to turn that off when a dog is in hot pursuit of something that they want to go after. So, and then there's dogs that, I've seen owners that have had dogs that are dog selective or can get into trouble with other dogs, and they want to be able to have their dogs off leash, but they want to be able to call their dogs back on a dime and be able to leash them back up and make sure their dog doesn't get into trouble, or conversely, get their dog back who's not dog aggressive but has been attacked before. Like Marta, my wife, who you met earlier, her dog Archie is a sweet, like cream puff of a dog. He's a border collie from New Zealand, purebred. And when he was little, he was attacked by three staffies off leash. They broke his jaw at 6 months. They broke his jaw, and like they really did a number on him. And so even though he's a sweet cream puff of a dog, he's also defensive, because he was super traumatized, and it makes perfect sense. So when she's out and she takes all of our dogs out, and they go for hikes and walks along, bayou and swamps and stuff like that, if they see other dogs, she can call them right back. She can make sure that she doesn't put him in a spot where he's going to react negatively because somebody else's dog comes rushing up. He's never going to rush up to another dog, but the other dog rushing up, she can recall him, make sure there's no problem, leash on, boom, good to go, and then move past that. So there's a million reasons that people will come for this stuff. So it's not just, and I want to be really clear with this, it's not just for behavior issues and severe dogs, because I don't like that, the idea that prong collars and e-collars are only for severe dogs. I really think what you brought up before really helped kind of pull this apart, which is it really depends on what your goals and your standards are, right? So if once again, if you don't mind a dog that's a maniacal, reactive dog, and we've all seen them, like owners that are like, he's really friendly, it's like he's on his back legs and they're holding on tight.
Yep.
If that doesn't bother them, it does. I mean, it bothers me as far as like having to walk by them, but it doesn't bother me as far as like as an owner, like knock yourself out. I've got zero dog trainer like higher moral ground judgment about like what you're doing, unless you put myself or my dogs at risk. I don't care what you do. And if you want your dogs to be nutty in the house, knock yourself out. I got no problem with that either. But like I said, the puppies that come out of our program are all taught first with positive reinforcement, and then they're all completely off leash reliable. So owners love that. I mean, they get the ability to take a 6-month, 7-month-old dog and go rock and roll and have the dog actually come back, where we've all seen people chasing their dogs around and, hoping and crossing their fingers. And we've also heard about, I know plenty of people who've had really, really horrific accidents, even dog trainers who were real certain that their dogs were not needing of tools, whose dogs are no longer with us because of horrible accidents, getting hit by cars, when that ball was more interesting or that critter was more interesting. So I'm super pragmatic. I mean, it really comes down to that. Absolutely. I'm super pragmatic. And so I'm like, what makes people's lives best, easiest with their dog, to include them in the most places, to have the most fun with them and the least amount of stress? Because I know that's going to mean that the dog has the best life, even though people are going to say, but you're going to have the best life through pain and suffering and struggle. That's up to them to like, they can import that thought if they want, but I just watch dogs that have been properly trained get to have the biggest life. And so I'm super down for that. And I'm also down for advocating for owners not struggling and not being stressed out and
definitely
all that.
Yeah. And I think you said the key word. The key word is that, whether it's a prong collar or an e-collar or whatever else, is that it's a tool. And I've definitely seen people who do want to use it as a shortcut, and who do want to just not have, they think that either by hiring a trainer and or getting a shock collar, that all the problems are just going to go away. And it's like, I didn't expect having to explain so directly that like you actually have to teach the dog what getting shocked or sprayed or whatever it is, what this consequence means first. And that's still a process. And
why do you think that is, though? I'd be curious. Why do you think it is that owners feel that way?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it has to do with a level of expectation that, you see dog shows or you see the movies, and you just expect that, it can be done, with the right dollar amount or the right tool. And it's just like that. It can be done. I think the fact that, people in general kind of have this instant gratification type mentality when it comes to everything. It carries over, and people just, and certainly not everyone. I mean, most of my clients are the type of people who are, ready to go and want to do the work and are excited to go on this journey. But I think in general, you do have a lot of people who are not that way and are looking for just a quick fix. Especially people who maybe didn't think about all of the implications of buying a dog in the first place. And, they maybe their friend has a dog and it's well-trained. And so they have an idea of what being a dog owner is like, and then they jump into it. And then, they're not willing to do
very different.
Please.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think what you're getting at, whether intended or not, is that humans are flawed and we're going to make a lot of mistakes, right? And so, luckily there's nowadays there's a dog trainer on every corner, and so people need to be informed consumers, and hopefully they can pursue trainers that can give them good advice and help them through making proper selections of tools and approaches and solutions and things like that. But the thing I would add to the shortcut conversation is also, I don't have a problem with the shortcut as long as it's not a
Yeah. Hold on.
shortcut that comes at a debt for the owner, right? So shortcut creates like, who wants to wait longer? Do you want to wait longer at the drive-through? Like, do you want to wait longer to pick your car up from the mechanic? It's like, none of us want to wait longer for results. But if I said, you don't have to wait as long, but your car won't be as good.
Right.
Or your burger or whatever the hell it is you order if you're vegan, but like, no offense. So you have to be careful these days.
Oh, yeah.
So whatever it might be, if that shortcut came at the quality of what you were going to receive, you'd probably say, no, I'd rather wait. So for me, if a shortcut and it has a negative connotation, which I push back against a bit, but if the shortcut created great stuff in a short amount of time, I'm all for it. If a shortcut is, like you're saying, people trying to throw tools on and not being knowledgeable enough to know how to utilize them correctly, then obviously that's going to create deleterious results, which are not what any of us.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point in this sense, because like I definitely am using shortcut, as a with a negative connotation, but that's a very good point that it doesn't need a shortcut doesn't need to be a bad thing, but it's about.
But it can be. But it can be.
It definitely
so
can
I'm with
be.
you. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of I guess. Well, you said you work with all kinds of dogs, but what kind of dogs have you had in your career that have really really taught you things that have stuck with you? Things that maybe not just the X's and O's of what we were talking about, how to train recall, but the nuances we were talking about before. Those that you're not necessarily going to find in a book. What can you speak to some of those experiences?
Well, I mean, what I tell everybody who, whether it's online in comments or it's actually trainers that I'm working with, is like, I've had dog owners and dogs surprise me constantly in both directions. In the direction that I thought this owner was going to kick butt, and they absolutely crashed and burned. The dog was going to kick butt, and it crashed and burned. Or I thought this dog was going to be amazing and things were going to be fantastic. And right, or where I'm going.
Vice versa, yeah.
Yeah, vice versa. So I try and remind folks that that's something that's in play, and to get used to the reality that there's so many variables involved that you can do all sorts of great work, but that great work doesn't ensure that things are going to turn out in the fashion that you assume they're going to turn out. So as far as, and what I'm trying to answer your question, which is, I would say the dogs that I thought early on, my intuition said, this doesn't look good. This looks like heavy genetic stuff where, this dog is struggling with processing, retaining, inhibiting behaviors, things like that. And then by being creative and sticking with it for a certain amount of time, all of a sudden we start to see a crack in that, a positive crack. And you're like, oh, okay, here's a doorway in, which has helped keep me really humble and really optimistic and really creative. So I try and, all the trainers that I work with, I try and instill that in them to keep that creativity, keep that optimism, along with a healthy balance of practicality, not pessimism, but practicality, that just because you want it and you're going to put the time in doesn't mean that dog's going to be okay. And so I would say the dogs that have taught me the most have been the ones that have surprised me in both directions. Owners that have surprised me in both directions. I mean, I've had a dog that was in my first book. What the hell's his name? He's a Neapolitan Mastiff, Dozer. And he had put his mom in the hospital multiple times. Like she's still got scars up and down her arms from him really, really, really nailing him. And he would corner the boyfriend and just bare teeth and just hold him in the corner for as long as he enjoyed holding him in the corner for. And just ran the house and the dog was definitely happy to bite, but was also not a firm, what you would call a firm dog. If pressure was applied, he would say, "Ooh, I'm not so down with that. No one's ever actually applied any pressure. White flag, I'm pretty
Right.
cool." And so, which is honestly, if you're dealing with a biting, dangerous dog, a dog that has never had any pressure in a positive sense, meaning something that actually helps inhibit that behavior, if they've never had that, and then you offer it and you see a dramatic shift, it's like, man, you can't really ask for more than that, because it really is about as promising as you can get. When you get a dog who's had fairly, solid owners who've had structure and rules and all of that stuff in place, and have kind of led the house in an appropriate fashion, and the dog is still setting limits and exacting, consequences and tolls on them, that's a worrisome thing. And then when you come in and then you try and work a bit of your magic and you see, wow, all I'm getting back is nothing but defensiveness. And I don't mean like you're trying to wrestle the dog or beat the dog into submission, right. and he's defensive because of it. I just mean it could just be simple leash pressure and guiding the dog along and guiding the dog around, and you're getting all sorts of negative stuff that continues and continues and continues, and you see no abatement. So with this dog, we did put pressure on the dog. We did share consequences for trying to bite multiple people on our team. And then this owner showed up. She's like 5 foot tall. Dog's obviously 140 pounds, bite risk. She's scared of him, but she loves him to death. Bad combo. And so we started working with her because we do 2 sessions back to back, 2 days in a row. And she was scared and struggling. And I was preparing myself to have a conversation the next day with her about, let's talk about reality. Let's talk about your safety. Let's talk about what this could ultimately mean, because this could ultimately mean not just putting you in the hospital. This could mean, like, let's talk about real stuff. This could mean he kills you. This could mean he escapes and injures or kills somebody else. So let's talk about your own personal safety. Let's talk about legal ramifications. Let's talk about financial ramifications. Let's talk about, the whole plethora of what goes along with that. So with dangerous dogs, severe dogs, I always have those conversations with clients. But to kind of like shorten this up, when she showed up the next day, and I've PM'd her and tried to get the lowdown on what changed with her, she showed up a different person. And I still to this day don't know what happened. And she showed up, and it's one of the reasons I like doing multiple sessions back to back, because I think for a lot of folks, when they feel they've got one session, they got one shot at it, they're experiencing dealing, especially if it's a dangerous dog or a dog that's bitten them, they're experiencing all that fear for the first time. And it's like, okay, he's listening, but is he going to snap at any moment? After they've had one session where the dog does well, they can digest that and come back the next day, I think, a bit refreshed and possibly in a different mindset. And she did. And she kicked butt, and she was like just on top of him for every little infraction. And I gave her a ton of advice and a lot of suggestions about practicality and safety and how to move slow and what the true possibilities were with a dog of that size for her and anybody else. And sure enough, like 6-7 months later, she's out, because she was a photographer, still is, and he passed away, and she adopted another Neapolitan, because after you've had such an easy time with one, why not get another?
Why not?
But she's doing great with them. But she's got a whole page of Instagram, like amazing photographs, where this dog who had put her in the hospital is everywhere. I'm talking about, he's in Vegas, he's in elevators, crowded elevators in Vegas, and just hanging out. He never had another bite. He never had another issue. He never went after her again. And, her response was like, when the consequences are appropriate for him, they absolutely change his behavior. And he challenged me a couple times as far as like not trying to bite, but challenged me as far as like, what do you got, mom? And mom said, this is what I got. And so anyways, that's a good example of a client really, really surprising me, and why I try and because I'll get tons of trainers who'll be like, oh, this owner just, they're such a wreck and they'll never be anything else. And I'm like, don't be so sure of that. Like, challenge yourself. Now, that doesn't mean burden yourself with doing their work. That's still their work.
Right.
But man, keep your mind open to what might be possible if you can access the right stuff and show them possibilities and maybe a different avenue, a different course of action, and what they might get out of it. So anyways, I wish I had a more amazing story of like a dog that, that changed kind of my perspective on things. But I think that's a pretty good example.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, that's a great story. And just no 2 days are ever the same as a dog trainer. That's for sure.
No.
Getting back to the book itself. So is it more of telling stories like this and how you've gotten through with individual examples? Is it more like conceptual exercises and stuff? What can you find in the book?
What the hell is this thing all about? Okay, so it's a little bit of both. So what we did was we put, I think, there's 2 volumes, and we basically did both volumes similarly, even though the content's completely different. But we had owner stories, because I felt it was valuable that people got tangible, real life stories from owners. So owner stories are in there, and then there's a ton of ideas, concepts, thought experiments. That sounds so freaking fancy. I don't mean it like that, but stuff to get people to think, right? There's, as far as like practical training protocols, when people ask me, people will message me or comment and say, is this a good book for my resource guarding dog? Is this a good book for my reactive dog? Is it going to teach me how to make him not reactive or not resource guard or whatever? You fill in the blank. And I'll tell them, it'll give you foundational insights into a lot of the relationship dynamics that could be impacting that and likely are impacting that, but it's not going to give you a step-by-step guideline or guide how to, as a dog trainer, or if you were the as an owner, the dog trainer in place of a professional, it's not going to give you typically step-by-step. It's much more about relationship dynamics than it is about the mechanics of the training. There's a bit of that in there, but to be honest, that stuff, there's so much of that out there. And to be really, really honest, it just doesn't fascinate me very much. Not the dog training mechanics. Like, I'm always looking at it, right? I'm always observing and trying things and trying to be creative. But when it comes down to things that provoke me actually writing, trying to come up with, unless it's something, I'd say this, unless it's something that I think is unique or hasn't been talked about enough, then that's interesting.
You're not trying to write a textbook.
Yeah, but there's so much of it out there. There's so many videos. There's so many people with posts that, and it's not about, I just want to be different. It's just what's exciting or interesting enough for me to spend 2 hours writing, and to write, recall protocols or leash protocols is just not super exciting for me, because there's already a ton of that out there, and to be honest, man, it's also writing about it because I'm not as passionate about it means that it's not going to be my strength in words. My strength in words is going to be more whatever I'm gravitating towards, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So it's it's not necessarily a fix to a problem, but it's a more foundational thing where people can get a better understanding of what is going on, whatever happens to be going on, getting a better insight into that.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing that I had no inkling that this would ever transpire. But we started selling early on a handful of books to trainers. And I was like, what trainer is going to buy a book called, like it's got my name on it. You know what I mean? Just like dog trainers are very like, hey, it's me. And I'm my own, like, badass, as you should be. And I thought, well, no one's going to, utilize a book that's got somebody else's name on it. But we started finding that trainers were handing out this book along with their homework for whether it was one-on-ones or board and trains. And then it kept snowballing more and more and more and more. And so we were ordering 1,000 at a time. And so we probably sold, I don't know, 10, 15,000 copies just through bulk, not considering like Amazon singular purchases and things like that, but to trainers who hand them out, and even like training facilities and centers that hand them out. And what we found over and over again, the response is, this is and like, take this with a grain of salt and with as much humility as it's as intended. But for a lot of them, it's the missing link that they were struggling to be able to convey to the owners relationship wise. Not the training. They had all the training stuff. They had the mechanics. They had the tools. They had practice this stuff all, this amount of time during the day, make sure your walks look like this and all of that stuff. But as far as being able to convey the relationship dynamics and a lot of the intricacies of that, the response that I've gotten back is that this is what I've always wanted to be able to convey to my clients, but I've had a hard time articulating it. So that's been a huge, huge surprise. Like I never saw that coming.
Really? Because that makes perfect sense to me. That's yeah. I mean, just seeing, like, you'll post a tweet and it'll, it's the size of a tweet, but it over and over and over again, having these gems of just putting things the right way. So I mean, sing your praises, man. You
I appreciate that.
Gotta give yourself some more credit, because you really do, have a way of thinking about this stuff that, I when I'm with clients, I like to tell them that we need to separate simple versus easy. A lot of what we're going to be doing is very, very simple, but that does not mean that it's going to be easy. But if you're, the point being, if you're ever confused about, what did we say, or what was the thing, you can, it's not anything that's super complex. You just, when you get the basic tenets of the principles of what we're working with, then you can just apply that to anything. And so, like, my whole thing is, the easiest thing in the world would be if if your dog spoke English and we just be like, hey, dude, do you mind pissing outside? You'd be like, oh yeah, my bad, no problem. But it's like, obviously that's not the case. And so, building
Elon Musk is working on it, though.
I'm sure he is.
He's working on it.
And so finding a language with the dog is the ultimate goal. And so that starts with just some basic commands, and then it moves on to applying more pressure, as as you were talking about, and then really addressing as best as we can, the mentality of the dog feeling as though they are entitled to dictate the terms of your interactions. Whether that be them jumping on you when you come home, or pulling on the leash, wherever the dog is, leading you, then something's gone wrong. Right. And, I think something that's been surprising to me, that is how little, even people who've had dogs their whole lives sometimes will be the idea of a dog's wanting that structure and that leadership is a foreign thing to them. They just want to spoil their dog, and understandably, but they think doing that, and any kind of consequence, or any kind of border or anything is a detriment to the dog. Yeah, and it's really like, no, the more things you have in place, the more structure there is, the more the dog can feel comfortable inside that structure, and the more you can trust that dog to do what he's trying to do.
Right, which is why so much of what when I write, I write about, honestly, from a parental child perspective, because I feel like more people can tune into that and understand that. Now there's plenty of parents that are shirking their duties out there, but I think most sane, rational folks can look at parents that are not providing adequate structure, rules, guidance, authority to their children, know that those kids are going to struggle. Like, and I'm not saying that to be dramatic. It's just, I think sane humans, and especially sane parents, are going to understand that really clearly. So I always say my favorite dog training book isn't a dog training book. My favorite dog training book, which always people think it's a joke, but it's not, is Larry Winget's, who's been around for a long time. Larry Winget's book, Your Kids Are Your Own Fault. and it's a no nonsense book about parenting, and he's been around the block. He's got a gazillion books out, and he cuts to the chase. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He's not nasty or evil or mean, but he's just straight to the point. And for me, it's his version of kind of my version with like dog training stuff. And I'm not putting myself in the same space, but his version of observing absolute, what you were getting at, which is like anything I do that's structured, rules, consequences, might make my child unhappy, or might make my dog unhappy, is going to be an unpleasant thing for them, and it's going to be detrimental to them. So in that case, I won't do it, which is a very pervasive message in culture right now. I mean, we got that everywhere. So that's happening with kids, and we all know they're like, everybody gets, 8th place trophy kind of stuff. So I mean, that stuff's happening all over. And so if we're going to think about what it does with kids, then of course we all know that so many owners view their dogs as children. And I don't really have a problem, and this can be a contentious thing, but I don't have a problem with people thinking of their dogs as their kids. I have a problem with people thinking of their dogs as infants or babies, because you treat infants and kids very, very different. So infants get whatever they need. No boundaries, no rules, no consequences. What do you need? It's yours. You got to have it because this is what you need to survive, and my job is to provide it. When you start to move into childhood, then we start to move that, and it starts to transition into, okay, cool, I still have to provide for your needs and this, and this, but your needs are changing. Now your needs are, you need to know how to actually be socialized and be able to function within society, and not pull Susie's hair and, and not run around the classroom, screaming and all that stuff. So I really think that we've got this pervasive thing that's occurring with humans and their children. And then we've also got this thing that just, as an absolutely obvious natural byproduct, because people think of their dogs as kids, and we have the same thing going on. Now, like I said, if they're thinking of them as kids in the appropriate, healthy way, I got no problem with it. But if you're thinking of them in the way of poor parenting of actual human children, then I hate it. But what typically happens is they're not thinking, most of them, and I'm going to give people more credit, but most of them are thinking of them as infants. They're really, that's like fur baby didn't come about for no reason. There's a reason that came along. And so we have this huge desire to be empathetic. We have this huge desire. There's so many humans out there that don't have good family connections, don't have good, romantic partner connections, don't have good friendships. They've got tons of voids in their life. And so dogs are the perfect receptacle for whatever that is. They'll take it on. Doesn't mean that there won't be fallout, but they'll take it on. They won't sit down in the therapist's office and be like, look, my owner's putting a shit ton of pressure on me, and it's really like, it's making me bonkers, So they're unfortunately the perfect receptacle for that. And so for people that don't have, which is a lot of people, and I mean that in a really empathetic way, there's a lot of people suffering and struggling out there, and dogs end up meeting that need in a lot of ways. And so a lot of this is about people getting healthier, which is like, well, how do you tackle that? I don't know. I think our podcast better go on for 19 days,
Yeah, right.
So, there's a lot of challenge in that, in just the way that people are navigating life on an individual basis. And then if we talk about actual parenting, there's a lot of problems with that. And then if we talk about moving down into ownership, and some people have problems with that, being a dog owner and having a dog, then we see, I think, the natural kind of ripple effect of that moving into dog ownership. But dogs, I think, because they've got this, what appears to be this innocence, and I think anybody who's really honest and been around a lot of dogs will know that dogs can be incredibly mischievous creatures and super opportunistic, right? And so to apply that to them, like they're just these innocent angels and they wouldn't do anything. And I don't mean they're monsters out there to, like, take over, and like everybody's like, they'll take over the house. It's like, well, no, not necessarily, but they, depending on the personality of the dog and how intense the dog's kind of demeanor is, you'll get more of that or you'll get less of it. There's plenty of dogs out there that you could baby the crap out of, spoon every night, give them ice cream with a spoon and have no problems. And then there are dogs that if you did even a smidge of that, you would literally have yourself a terrible, terrible disaster. So there's a huge wide spectrum of what you can get away with. So my best suggestion would be, and I'm all over the place here with what I'm talking about, but my best suggestion for somebody looking for a dog, you were talking about that, like maybe doesn't want to put all the work in, isn't really down for the task of what dog ownership is. And this would be a huge educational thing that like would be very challenging to try and get out there, but find a dog that will allow you to engage in that kind of behavior without immense fallout. Now, what does that look like? That's where you have to educate people. What do soft, easygoing dogs look like versus dogs that have, like, once again, anybody who's done a lot of work with dogs will know dogs that have swagger and will, kind of look in and look for opportunities versus dogs that are just like, cool, what are we doing? Like, and the spectrum's wide, obviously.
Yeah, and everything in between. And you can, if you know what to look for, you can find it a bit more easily than just kind of going in blind and saying, well, I don't, what does this breed do? That's something I'll hear a lot. And it's, breeds have tendencies, sure, but each dog is so unique that on a balance of probabilities, you're not necessarily, going for a specific breed because of certain behavioral traits, to a certain extent will work, but it's really, it doesn't work like that.
You're hopefully getting some general components,
Right.
but like, I'm with you 100% on that, which is that I always tell people when they ask me, what breed, I'm like, choose on an individual basis.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to, let's say you go to your shelter and you've got a Mal, a Pitty, God knows what, just like, a Beagle or whatever it is, and you go down the list and you've got the world's most chill, relaxed Mal who's just like, yeah, I didn't read the handbook, I didn't get the Mal handbook, then maybe that's a really great dog for your home, even though a lot of people will be like, that's crazy because Mal, like, but I've seen Mals like that. I've seen Rotties that haven't read their handbook that are like the furthest thing from being a protective, confident dog. And I've seen Pitties that are absolutely not dog aggressive and the most sweet, easy dogs in the world. And I've seen the exact opposite. So it's like, try and go. My best advice is always for people to try and go by an individual basis and look for personality. And I don't think this gets talked about enough in dog training. Like you said, breed, drive, all that stuff, that's super common, but like personality is such a critical component. It's the first thing I look at when somebody drops off a dog. I'm like, my whole team, it's like, what do you think? And I don't mean like, what do you think in a cocky way? I just mean like, what do you think? And we'll talk about the personality characteristics that we see, because within a 30-minute drop off, you can see a whole hell of a lot in the way the dog's engaging with the environment and with the owner. And softer dogs are going to be typically just much easier dogs to work with. Will they be as drivey? Maybe not, but will they be easier to live with? Probably so. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was just about to ask you any advice for a first-time dog owner, and you went there on your own. So thank you very much for that one. I mean, yeah, man, I don't want to take up too much of your time. This is all, amazing stuff. I'm definitely stealing the child versus infant thing.
there
Um,
you go. There you go.
and yeah, so I mean, I really appreciate this conversation. I wasn't sure exactly where it would take us, but it's super helpful, at least to me personally, to get this from you, to be hearing this perspective. And all the while I'm fitting in, okay, what do I think about certain things, and how does that fit in with what I think? And
Yeah.
I haven't really, I expected maybe something here or there where we might have completely different perspectives, and I'd be like, actually, I don't think that's the way to do it. I think it's this way. And that really hasn't come up. And I think it's really because, when it comes down to it, we both have an open perspective on what it is that we're talking about. And I see a tremendous amount of humility and thoughtfulness from you. And I think that is that kind of stuff is way more important to being a dog trainer than any particular certification that you have, or anything like that. Obviously, you want somebody experienced and who knows what they're doing. But
Great.
there's there's different levels of understanding and passion that people have for this, and it's very clear that you have a high level of both. So again, thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, man, it's been a
if
pleasure. I just want to say, like, the last thing, just before I take my leave, observation, man, whether it's you or any other trainer coming up, or an owner, just observation. It's our best skill set for determining whether something is good, bad, working, or not working, right? So it's like, if it's you and you're going through your own process of discovery, observation is going to guide you. And same thing for owners. If you come across owners that are struggling with stuff and I don't know what to do and I'm not sure what approach, it's like, go observe a bunch of different things and then determine what is delivering the best stuff, what is delivering good stuff, what is delivering real stuff, what is delivering replicable stuff. And as long as people are utilizing that skill set, like, you got a pretty decent shot at success. And I think, and I'll close with this, I'd say that removing observation and instead blindly going into ideology of what somebody's taught me and what I'm told, and this is what it is where most people really, really struggle and where they end up in a bad space. So
well
sorry to
put.
end on a negative note or a down note, but
Well, to cheer everybody up, then why don't you let us know where people can find you, any other books that you've got, anything else that you want to plug? The floor is yours.
well, this is volume 1, Love Them by Leading Them. This is volume 2, same guy with the same hat on the cover that you see right here. Those are all available on Amazon and Audible. So there's audiobooks, there's Kindle, there's paperback. And Closing the Gap, if you're a human looking to work on human stuff. It's basically a very short, concise handbook that I wish I would have had when I was 25 or 30 and floundering and desperately trying to not flounder anymore. So yeah, that's it. And then I think you've got my stuff, my other handles for other social platforms in the
Yep. Yeah, we'll have all the everything, book links, all that stuff down below. Please do go check out Loving Them. Love Them by Leading Them.
Loving them by hugging them.
Yeah, not that. Yeah, definitely go follow Sean on Twitter, Instagram. Just great stuff always coming from his platform. So thank you again for joining me, and
Thanks, man.
you have a great day.
Thanks. I appreciate the conversation.
Take care. All right. How cool was that? funny enough, before he's like, I might not be talking too much, so if you gotta lead the dance, so to speak. But he definitely had a lot to say, and it was all great. Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were gonna get into specifics on our own personal philosophies. I guess as a dog trainer, there's things that are more or less standard in terms of how, the way that you want to think about things. Like the we were talking about, even though my company is positive reinforcement only, and he is a balanced trainer, that he most of the early work that he does is all based on positive reinforcement. And so it's there's definitely dogs that that my company would not be able to handle because of the tools that we are not equipped to use, being positive only. And sometimes that is perfectly fine, and sometimes it means that we have to tell people that it's not going to be a good fit. And I think that's an important part of hiring a dog trainer, is not only do they know what they're talking about, but do they know how to talk to you. It's all well and good for them and the dog to know what's up, but if you don't know what's up, then you're in the same position. So when somebody like Sean is so good at and tries so hard and does so well at breaking these things down, it's really cool to see. It's really cool to see. I definitely suggest you go follow him on social media. He's even if you're not a dog trainer or a dog owner, he's got like he said, a lot of his stuff is relevant universally, whether it's about life or parenting, working on stuff with yourself. It's not all about getting a dog from point A to point B. It's stuff that can do that, but also has a much wider application. So yeah, man, that was cool. That was great. I'm hoping that I can put together a panel of people like Sean, and we can be doing this somewhat regularly. So definitely, if there is somebody who works with dogs, maybe not even a trainer, works at a shelter, dog walker, veterinarian, any of that stuff, share this with them. And let them see what's up, and maybe we can get something going. So we heard a lot of great stuff from Sean, and this is another one of those episodes where I gotta sit back and think for a little bit. And he dropped a lot of knowledge, and this is going to be one of those episodes where you gotta go back and watch it again to catch all of it. So I'm gonna go do that. And very cool, very cool. I hope that I've only been a trainer for a few years, and I think I'm pretty damn good at what I do, but because there's not such a strict hierarchy in terms of becoming a trainer. Like there's certain certifications you can get, but there's no board of whatever. You can just decide to start being a dog trainer. Like you can just do that. It comes with its pros and cons, because somebody like myself, one of the benefits is that I have the freedom to find what works for me, as opposed to just doing, this is what you do, that's the procedure, this is the policy. I find there's room for me to continually be getting better at what I do, and finding new ways to communicate what I'm trying to communicate, all that stuff. But it also allows for people who are not that good at training dogs to be dog trainers. So it's very refreshing to talk to someone who really has a good understanding of this stuff, and visibly cares about getting this stuff right and sharing this information with people. Yeah. So Thank you again for tuning into the I Didn't Read Your Book podcast. Make sure you follow me. IDRYB Lutch on Instagram and Twitter. Go follow Sean, the Good Dog Training, or the Good on Instagram, the Good Dog Sean on Twitter. Make sure you hit those support links below. I could definitely use your help. Trying to get some, like I said, aside from the dog trainer panel, there's some other stuff that I am trying to get going. So any help would be greatly appreciated. But if you can't do that, it is completely free to hit the like, comment, and subscribe. So please definitely do that. And even if you can't support, just sit at home, think about how awesome I am and how great this podcast is. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.